Hello, everyone. How are things where you live? I hope everyone is well today. Thank you for coming. I see some friends arriving. Hello in Bulgaria. Hello in New Jersey. Hello in Cyprus. And hello from Florence. And from Romania. Hello, Christina. Hello from Hungary. Oh my goodness. This is very exciting. I'm very happy that you're here with me today. I hope everything is going well in your countries. It is slowly getting better here in Florence. And we're very happy about that. And slowly but surely. So today, in our, well, first of all, for any of you who don't know me, my name is Susan Galliano. I'm a head teacher trainer here at the Europass Teacher Academy. And I'm going to be giving a talk this week. This is our sixth talk in our weekly webinar that we've been offering on Wednesday afternoons at 2 p.m. Italian time, which have been a very nice way for us to connect with, support, and exchange ideas among our network of educators all around the European Union and more from around the globe. We're very happy to see that we're able to interact with teachers from all over the world, and especially in a moment like this where every school is going through some big changes because of the coronavirus. And so it's so interesting because normally our school systems are so different, but at the same time we're all experiencing something very similar. So yes, I see some friends from Poland, from Bulgaria, from Spain. I see Marta Mandolini, my colleague. It's so good to see you here. Thank you for keeping me company today. So today, what we are going to talk about, we are going to focus on what I talked about as being those magic ingredients that add spice to everything we do in our curriculum. It adds a touch of energy to us and also to our learners. And so we will be talking about the 4 C's. And the 4 C's, for any of you who are not that familiar with them, refer to communication, collaboration, creativity, and critical thinking. So it even sounds fun just thinking about it. These ingredients that I say that are magic, they're free, they're easy to use, they don't require that you have any special talents, they don't really require that you have any special equipment or tools even. It really just requires you to be able to see opportunities, to let your imagination go. It's about having faith in your learners. It's about giving them space instead of filling all of the space already as a teacher. And it also involves having a very good understanding of how motivation works. Now, as you probably recall, you might remember from my recent teacher talk here on Europass Live, we talked about motivation about a month ago. And we talked about the fact that in order to stimulate what we call intrinsic motivation, which is motivation that comes from inside of us, okay? So it's not about grades, or it's not about stickers or prizes or points, but it's just out of the fact that we want to do something, we want to learn something, we want to master something, and it's just our desire alone. So we talked about this, and it's a very important thing to keep in mind when we talk about the 4 C's. Now, the 4 C's are not a methodology. These are macro areas of the soft skills. And as you know, the soft skills are all of those, let's say, those interpersonal skills that we have, as opposed to hard skills. Now, obviously, when we talk about the 4 C's, it's going to involve both soft skills and hard skills. But the actual, when we think about communication, collaboration, creativity, and critical thinking, we usually don't teach courses on those things. They are just mixed in with whatever we are teaching. So it's a way to, let's say, to give wings to your content and let it fly. So none of this is new to education. The 4 C's are nothing new. Teachers forever have always used elements of the 4 C's every single day, probably in every lesson. What can change in studying the 4 C's and really working on them is your awareness of them. Basically, what can happen is you change your thoughts about how, when, why, what for, and where do you use these 4 C's. What can change is how deliberate you are in using them. That's what makes them very powerful. So with some practice, and today we'll just talk about it briefly, starting with a certain idea that I had. And you'll see how much these 4 C's really overlap, intertwine. It's not exactly something that you need to focus on. Of course, you can focus on each one separately, but you'll see that the moment you start focusing on one, it's often incorporating elements of the others. So, when we talked about motivation, one thing that I was thinking about is that we need to keep in mind what people find interesting, what interests them. Now, this is particularly important with our students because most of you are working in compulsory education, which means they have to be there. Your learners haven't really chosen to be there. Maybe some of them really like school or they really like your subject, but usually what children talk about, the thing that they love about school, yes, they love certain subjects, but they love all the socialization that they get to do. They love the fact that they can play in the playground. Those are the things that they tend to be just naturally motivated to do. So it's interesting to think about this compulsory education because when I talk to educators during our courses at Europass, one of the things that often emerges is how much teachers and we adults hate being told what to do. We don't like it. And guess what? Guess what happens with our students? Children and young people, day in and day out, are constantly being told what to do. They're being told what to do by their parents. They're being told what to do at school. They're being told what to do out on the football field. They're being told what to do when they go to guitar practice. So, like I said, even if they like school, they don't always like being told what to do. And this is where the 4 C's also can be very helpful. So we need to be smart. We need to be smart. We need to first care enough to think about what stimulates us. Then, even like we need to think about what stimulates us, even in a topic that we're not necessarily interested in. What is it that captures our attention? Some of you maybe in these days have followed some MOOCs, they're called MOOCs. Those are massive open online courses. And they usually have thousands of people who sign up for them. And maybe you listened to lectures and you watched videos and perhaps you had to do little quizzes at the end, but you had very little, you didn't really have any direct interaction with your instructor, and maybe just a minimum of interaction through Padlet with the other people in the course. But it wasn't really about the human connection. It was about the content because you were interested. So maybe what can help us is to think about what it is that your students also do in their free time. If we, for example, you have a lot of students who play Fortnite. For those of you who don't know it, it's a video game. It's a game that they play online. And I would say it's not just the boys. I think there are lots of grown men playing it, and there are probably plenty of young women playing it. And Fortnite is a game where they have to strategize. They talk to people, they talk to friends that they're playing with, and they might even live on different continents. Maybe it's people they've never seen before. They have to strategize. They need to imagine scenarios. They have to solve problems. They need to, they feel really strong emotions, which is also part of what the hook is for them, because they feel fear, they feel pride, they feel joy. It's a challenge, and they feel competent because they can get better at it. So that's one example. Maybe you have students who watch a lot of tutorials at home, where they listen to other people who are particularly have a lot of expertise in a topic that they are really interested in. So it's funny because sometimes teachers say things like, "Oh, the children, they don't seem very curious," and I have to say they are incredibly curious. They are just like children have always been. However, what we need to realize is what makes them curious. What is it about that thing that makes them curious? And use it. Because we need to understand why they like Fortnite, or why they enjoy making videos on TikTok, or why they follow those YouTubers, or why they also watch tutorials on magic tricks, for example. Because we need to realize if that is what they are naturally going to in their spare time, isn't Fortnite just kind of like an enormous global experiment in the 4 C's of communication, collaboration, creativity, and critical thinking? So if we think about communication as one of the topics, it's enormous. It's enormous. So it embraces the verbal, the nonverbal, the analogic, digital. It involves how we communicate with ourselves. As we talked about 2 weeks ago in our topic on teacher stress, we talked about our self-talk, the conversations we have in our heads, about when we journal, when we write in our journals, about all our forms of self-expression, which could come through in words, either in acting, singing. It could be in writing. It could also be in things that we create with our hands. It is a form of communication. So it also involves, though, who we are talking to and a certain competence in this. Like when we talk with other people, like what's it like when our students talk to their classmates? What did they learn from that? It's how they talk to adults. It's how they talk to babies. It's how they talk to strangers. And it's even how they talk to people who are speaking different languages, or how they speak in that terrifying situation for many people that's called public speaking in front of an enormous audience. So these are all, it's very useful to find ways to have your students reflect upon all of these different aspects of communication, where you don't need to teach it directly, but you need to bring to the surface, into their awareness, what they are already doing. And perhaps some of them are doing it better, or some of them are doing it worse. But maybe we could help them become more aware of it. And we could also work on tools to help them navigate it. There's a whole world out there that has to do with how we use tone, rhythm. How many of your students are really fast talkers? Do any of you have those kids where you're like, wait, what? You know, I need subtitles for them because I can't, they talk so quickly. Or students who talk really softly and they really can't speak up. Or the ones that never shut up and they're talking all the time and they talk really loud. Okay, so they actually can learn about these things. They can become aware of them to modulate them. Then there's even things like how they use their bodies. How do they use their gestures, which is a very big thing here in Italy. How they use their facial expressions. We can combine their personal experiences with the science of it. And also asking them about silence, how they feel about silence. Or asking them about all of the different linguistic registers that have to do with speaking casually, you know, informally, formally, using technical jargon, or in things that are like consultative speaking, kind of like what is happening right now with me speaking to you on this webinar, or even slang. So as you can imagine, just this one aspect of the 4 C's can be developed in so many ways. So let's try a little experiment together on how we can take a piece of content, a module or a unit that you need to do, and think about it in a 4 C's kind of a way. So first off, say you are an English teacher, and if you're not an English teacher, don't go away because I will involve all of you. But let's just start with the English teacher. And the English language teacher who needs to teach a unit about Shakespeare. And at that point, they're focusing a bit on Romeo and Juliet. Also because usually you're teaching these things, you know your audience. So you're teaching teenagers, okay, who are very interested in all the topics that are around friendship, love, betrayal, passion. So we choose and we know who we're speaking to. So how would we incorporate the 4 C's? Because we have many choices here. We could just have them read about Shakespeare's life, read about all of the wonderful things that he did for the modern English language, and read all about his life and where he was born, and then read a piece from Romeo and Juliet, and then read what other people said about Romeo and Juliet, and then they could regurgitate that for a test, and they're all set. But there would be no 4 C's. So let's think about this. First off, you can think about this in terms of your own 4 C's and developing them. So we take Romeo and Juliet, and you take a piece of paper or whatever it is that you like to do when you want to free your mind and start thinking. So first you think, would there be any other colleagues of mine interested in perhaps connecting with this? This does not mean that you have to start an enormous interdisciplinary project. It could be a very casual, informal way, but think about it. Could the history teacher perhaps link it to that time in history? Could the art teacher have them draw, I don't know, examples of the types of costumes, the types of clothing that they wore? Or could they draw something connected to all of the very strong human emotions that come out in Romeo and Juliet? Could the music teacher have the students create a soundtrack, maybe their own soundtrack that would perhaps, in modern music even, that would accompany and correspond the various scenes. Could the geography teacher explore the city of Verona? Could the science teacher discuss how the chemical compounds found in the poison that was used, that they drank at the end of this great tragedy, could the science teacher discuss the chemistry of it? Or could the science teacher talk about the science of emotion? Because there is so much work being done in the neurosciences right now connecting emotion and hormones and how the brain develops and the effect that it has on our organs. Could it be even just a TED Talk that they show? It doesn't have to take up a lot of their time, but all of those things that then help Romeo and Juliet come to life in 360 degrees. And it's not just something that's detached from the rest of the world. Then, I don't know, could the PE teacher, your physical education teacher, maybe talk about, I don't know, sword fighting and the rudiments of fencing? Could the students rewrite the famous balcony scene in today's language? Could they write it in their dialect? Kind of like, could they listen to the Dire Straits' beautiful song Romeo and Juliet and reflect upon all the ways that Dire Straits transformed it into what was the language of that moment? Could the IT teacher, your ICT teacher, help students create, I don't know, little TikToks that would recreate the balcony scene? So it starts with your process in the 4 C's, how you can open up and see different possibilities. It's exciting. You can feel it, right? So here's an example of how an English teacher could first decide to approach it. So I took a piece of paper. I have no idea if you're going to see this backwards in mirror writing or not, okay? I'm sorry, I was not able to figure this out. Now, here I did like a little brainstorming, and I put my macro topic of Romeo and Juliet right in the middle, and I wanted to focus on communication, like different aspects of language. So I sat there, and for about 4 minutes, did not take me very long, I just wrote down everything that came to mind when I thought about communication, when I thought about language. So I thought about register. Register as in, Elizabethan English, or formal, or even intimate when the two lovers are speaking to each other. I thought of literary devices, right? Like metaphors and similes and puns that Shakespeare was so famous for. I thought of dialogue. I thought of monologue. I thought of a soliloquy. I thought of all the strong universal emotions like love, despair, anger, sadness. I thought about all of the styles of communication that there are, like persuasion, seduction, all right? I thought about all of the miscommunication. There are, for any of you who have ever seen that film with Gwyneth Paltrow called Sliding Doors, where in that film, everything changes based on whether she gets on a subway or not. And they show 2 different versions in the film, if she catches the subway or if she doesn't. And it could be very interesting, even as a creative exercise, for them to think about if one thing had gone differently, what could have happened in this story. They could also think about the concept of telegraphic messages, those little messages that were cryptic, and say, how does that connect to our lives today? Maybe these were just the ideas that came to my mind, but maybe you can think of more. Maybe there are things that I didn't think of. Can you help me? Can you help me go beyond where my own brain can take me right at this moment? Because that is the beauty of collaboration. Because I can only go so far in my thinking at a certain moment with the certain tools that I have. And so thanks to you, thanks to another person, it can grow. And this particular process, when I was writing these different things, it was a very creative, cathartic process. It made me feel alive. It made me feel excited. I enjoyed using the different colors. It was satisfying because I didn't censor my thoughts. I did not sit there and say, oh, no, I can't do this. Or, oh, this would be good at, no, I can't do that. Okay? This is very important in the creative part of the 4 C's. That when we are generating ideas, we are in that moment of opening up. We're opening up to what isn't yet, what could be, what we would like it to be. And that is a very delicate, vulnerable, powerful moment where we have to think about what we have to protect it. Because we are talking about things that don't yet exist or that could be, possibilities, dreams. And it's very, very common that at the moment when we start opening up, the critical thinking comes in and says, no, that's not going to work. That will never work. Or you can't do that because the kids won't like it. Or, oh, the school won't let you do it. Or the parents won't agree. That kind of, when you have the critical thinking that comes in and squashes creativity, this is not the best use of those two. We need them to work together, but not at the same time. It's a process of opening up and letting it flow. And then with your critical thinking, looking at what you have produced after you have produced it and thinking, oh, I can make connections. Just like I did here, where I just wrote whatever I thought. And then after I noticed that some of them were regarding grammar, some of them were about literary devices, some of them were about emotions, some of them were about styles of communication. So that's where my critical thinking helps me group them together and then decide how to proceed. So that's just what the teacher can do. Then you can think about what kinds of possibilities could I offer to my students? Maybe I could start a brainstorming with them based on some ideas that I already have, but I will leave it open because they will usually then expand on my thoughts. Some ideas that came to mind. With Romeo and Juliet, they could rewrite a passage in their own jargon, in their own slang, and act it out. As theater, drama. They could create a social media profile for a character of their choice, and they could create content that would reflect how that character would want to show themselves on the outside. They could rewrite the famous balcony scene, or the dialogue that they have. Maybe what would it be like if it were today and it was a Snapchat, or if it was a WhatsApp chat. If they could change, for example, one element in a scene, like we said before, that could change the entire outcome of what happens next. And then this becomes a reflection on chance, on choice, on consequences of actions. So this would involve their critical thinking. They could, like I said before, journal from the point of view of one of the characters. They could rewrite the story from maybe Juliet's maid's point of view. something where you're taking them, looking at it from a different perspective. So they are opening up, they are creating something different that is making them think more deeply about it. They could do it in pairs. They could do it in a group of 4. They could do it where perhaps they do it individually, but the teacher makes sure that they also have peer evaluation, where maybe before they show the teacher their work, they would exchange ideas with each other. Maybe they could have another classmate look it over and ask questions about it as a form of collaboration and communication. So basically, what happens in this process is, of all of these things that I just listed, you start thinking then, well, could they work in pairs? Could they work in groups of 4? Where am I going to allow them to make choices? Because as we talked about in motivation, this is something that makes a big difference. If you just come in and say, okay, everyone is going to make an Instagram profile of a character. You are going to do Romeo. You are going to do Juliet. Then it's not coming from them. So the important thing is to not, like I said, it's a creating possibility and space, so that then they can occupy that space and make some choices and kind of go in the direction where they'd like to go, and the 4 C's happen. The purpose in all of this is to give them what we say in English, ownership of their work, autonomy, creative license. We have them go more deeply into this amazing, beautiful, heartbreaking, timeless love story. And it's going to strike a chord in their hearts. And it makes them think about things in a new way. And it opens up a conversation that they can even have with their peers, where it's not about their personal emotions, it's about someone else's. But as we know, when we're talking about someone else's, there's always some of us. And so they are going to be naturally engaged in something like this. Then at that point, you use your critical thinking to, basically, like I was talking about, deciding what is your priority as a teacher. What is it that you would like to work on? What do you think your students need the most work on? You could include something in the 4 C's every day of the week, but without, like I said, needing to teach it directly. These are experiences that we can create. And then when they do work, you can say to them, would you like to work in pairs? Would you like to work individually and then have a buddy read over your work? And then the 4 C's come out in the moment that you have completed whatever it is you're going to do. And you say, how was it? How did it go? What happened? And you let them talk. Maybe they write it. Maybe they write it on little Post-its and they put it on the wall. Maybe they say it to the person next to them because it's just a little embryo of an idea and it's too hard to say it in front of everyone. So they get used to their own idea, hearing their own voice. You could ask them, what problems emerged? Because problems will emerge when we collaborate. But also, what joys? What did you learn? What surprised you? These questions stimulate their critical thinking. And this is something that they are going to need maybe more than we did even, because they're living in a world of fake news. They're living in a world where they have an overabundance of information that they have to look through and decide what is important, what they want to keep, where this information is coming from. But this idea is the 4 C's infuse them with a feeling of excitement and with possibility. And so our own excitement is like that flame that ignites theirs. And our Shakespeare example could be used in an in-person class. It could be used in an online format or in a combination of both, because some of our schools could possibly open up in September with a combination of both. And some of you are doing that right now. And actually, I actually would say that certain aspects of the 4Cs work even better in a combination of in-class and online class, because they have more time to work autonomously in their home, and they have like that freedom to sort of go where their mind is taking them. I have experimented this with my own students, and they went beyond what I even imagined. 4Cs can also be something very brief. It could be a 3 or 4 minute activity. It could be also, as we saw, part of a longer project. It could be interdisciplinary. It's basically using that magic, the magic of the 4Cs, so that that goes and stimulates their motivation, because it goes and responds to their need to communicate, to work with others, to socialize, to have their own original ideas, and also to feel competent. Like what I'm talking about, that I'm mastering it, that I am getting good at it, that I am able to reflect upon what I did or what others did, and maybe come up with different kinds of solutions. It makes me feel smart, and I like that feeling. And so school becomes a place where I am nourished and I want to be there because it's satisfying my need, whether it's in front of a screen or in front of my teacher. So, in this brief talk, obviously, it's not possible to go in depth into all of the 4 categories of the 4Cs. There would be lots to say about each one of them. But this was just to give you a bit of an idea. If any of you are interested in learning more about it, you can go on our Europass Teacher Academy website and click on online courses. And we are now offering some what we call live courses, live webinars that are going to be about 5 hours each, and 4Cs will be one of them that's offered. That's just basically where in each lesson of about an hour each, we would focus on one of the different Cs and have some interactive time together. David Baroni, who is he's basically our boss, and he is he's the manager of the Teacher Academy, and I know he's planning on giving a talk about this, just to kind of explain some of the new things that we're going to be offering, as well as another online service that we have included in our website that is called the Happiness Desk. And the Happiness Desk is an online counseling service that individual educators can access. And it will be, you will find professionals in the wellness field. Marta Mandolini, my colleague from Barcelona, who you know from the other teacher talks where she talked about teachers helping teachers and about mindfulness in schools. And she is a coach, and she is an art therapist, and I will also be participating at the Happiness Desk, and if you want any more information about that, just check on our website. So for today, I guess what I'd like to ask you to do before we say goodbye is think about what it is that you could try without risking much in the next few days using these 4Cs. Take what you have and just look at it with new eyes. You could try it like this, where I just concentrated on communication. You could focus on all of the 4Cs, and you try to find one small thing from the 4Cs that could connect to that topic. And then you could offer the students some choices. see what happens, and then please get back to us. Let us know your ideas. Let us know what you're excited about and what you have experimented with and what seems to be working, or maybe what's not working and you'd like to know if anyone else has the same problem. Let's use this wonderful community that we have to enhance our profession as best we can. So I want to thank you once again for being here today at the Europass Teacher Academy, and for your attention and for all of your wonderful messages and hellos, and I will answer you right after. And I hope you are all well. Enjoy the rest of your week.